if the purpose of government is to safeguard the exercise of rights, we have to understand what those rights even are. So in that context, what rights are we even talking about in your view?
So I think it was in the 1950s. It was Roosevelt's wife who cajoled the rest of the world to join the U.S. in signing on to the UN Declaration of Human Rights. And I don't remember, off the top of my head, right? But in essence, it's kind of the freedom to move. But for me, it was also what's striking about it is that it's one of the few statements of that kind of scope that uses the term dignity and treating people with dignity. The word dignity isn't part of the U.S. Constitution, right? It is. Thank you. So, I think freedom for, what are the rights that an immigrant has? Immigrants do not have a right to enter a country that is not their own, right? Every country has the right to secure their border and regulate who can enter and who cannot enter. But I do think that immigrants have some fundamental human right of being treated with dignity. And in fact, the original subtitle of the book was Crossing Borders, Restoring America's Dignity. And because what I found is that our policies predating Trump, certainly under Trump and even now, our immigration policies really strip the dignity from migrants. And along the way, I think those policies, by stripping dignity of migrants, strips the dignity of the country and all of us. Because our policies as a country, I think, are an extension of our values. So I think the right that any person should have is to be treated with dignity by the systems that they engage with.
Is there any element of being treated with dignity that has implications for what your movement looks like? I mean, I would say for myself, right, and I'm as a general rule, I don't try to hide where I am. I do think that people have a right to cross borders, and that any restrictions on that are necessarily a sort of a limitation of people's exercise of the rights that exist before our government. Even the UN Declaration, I think, is useful insofar as it's a statement of some consensus of its members, but I don't know that it goes quite far enough, because there are members who consented to that declaration that are in the habit of violating people's rights.
Right.
So I, at the risk of sounding like I'm just sort of repeating the question, at what point? This is a good transition. So you mentioned a country having a right to set the restrictions.
Yep.
I have to think that at some point a country can set the bar so high for entry that there's a violation not only of the rights, and I think this is part of where the dairymen are such a useful case, right? Mm-hmm. Not only of the rights of the migrant, but of the person the migrant is coming to exchange with.
Yep.
So in that sense, like, just independent of, and maybe this is why I was saying, feel free to get into how you see rights, right?
Yep.
But at least in my view, the right exists, predates the state that is formed to protect it. So how do you see that side of it?
Mm-hmm. So how do I see
the assuming, and maybe you don't, but assuming that you agree that the right is separate from the law designed to protect it, how do you see the right that the law is that the law would in an ideal world protect perfectly?
Right. So I mean, this is kind of natural rights versus right.
Correct. Yeah.
So actually, for the first book, I had this great conversation with Archbishop Wensky up here in South Florida, and he went into this entire idea of kind of natural rights. And if you frame it that way, if you ask the question, what is somebody's natural rights? It's to live, right? To be able to live to their fullest potential, ensure their children and their families are safe. And I mean, look, when somebody's natural rights are violated, they are going to move to another place so that they can be safe. They can live to their fullest potential. And that, that's the inherent tension of any government, right? Is the rights bestowed by a government versus the natural rights of any one human being. And, I I think we just have to kind of, you need systems that can operate in that tension. And right now, the immigration system, it avoids that tension completely.